Crack, crack, boom! Fantasy Junkies, it's week number 15. Jeff, Jesse, and Yeasty in the house having a great time doing the week 15 show.
Did he really just do that?
Yeah, crack, crack, boom. That's that's copyright my good friend Jeff over there with the crack, crack, boom. But we got 4 more matchups to break down before we wrap this show up. Yeasty wrapped up tighter than that wrist of yours, man. What are you gonna? You're left-handed, right?
I don't even know what the hell we're talking about right now.
He's going to have to become ambidextrous for at least a week.
Anyways, let's go to some football because I don't have any idea what we're talking about.
Would you give your right arm to be ambidextrous?
I can go both ways.
Nice.
Not literally.
You do go both ways, don't you, dude?
Not literally.
This show is spiraling downward in a hurry. So back to the matchups. Philadelphia at Dallas in a game that it locks 2 teams with a lot of pride. Dallas came out last week and really kind of laid an egg through the first 2.5, 3.5 quarters against Detroit, but the magic of Tony Romo brought the Cowboys back, and now this week there's been some more comments in the media. Terrell Owens kind of coming out, trying to correct some ills that were aimed at him by Keyshawn Johnson. Guys, I'm looking at this matchup, and I don't know about you, but I think Dallas might be about ready to explode here.
Yeah, Jason Witten, 15 catches last week, had a huge game. Tony Romo really brought him back. T.O. is going to have a huge game. He always does against the Eagles. Anybody that he's ever played with, he always tries to get back at him. I think Marion Barber is probably, hopefully, finally going to be the featured guy. So hopefully they give it to him more than 12 times because he had a big game last week too.
I love T.O. this weekend. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and I just think he's going to go crazy against the Eagles. And here's one thing that I was interested when I watched that game to see against Detroit. In my opinion, Detroit showed the NFL how you can beat the Cowboys. And unlike where I kind of disagree with you about Randy, if you take T.O. out of the game, you can beat the Cowboys. In my opinion, if you take Randy out of the game, you still can't beat the Patriots. But Detroit was able to hang with the Cowboys by blanketing T.O. and not letting him do very much.
What the hell was that?
And because of that, he was, they were able to
karmic retribution for you
him.
giving me crap about the last segment.
So anyway, I do like T.O. to get back on track here this weekend, and if you've got him, you got to play him because he's dynamite. So continue to roll with the hot hand. Although he was down a little bit last weekend, I think he'll be back. He wants to burn the Eagles, and I look at a lot of good things there. And of course, with Westbrook, he's having a career season. Out of the backfield catching the ball, he's probably the most all-around back in the league right now.
Yeah, you got to start Westbrook, and I look at this matchup and I start to wonder what's going on with the Eagles, what's going on in their heads. Right now, Donovan McNabb is going to play here. They've got 3 games left to go in the season. All the rumors are starting to circulate. Will Donovan McNabb be back? Look, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but I got to believe that Donovan McNabb has gathered together with Andy Reid and Brian Westbrook and said, look, guys, this might very well be the end of our run here. Just like other teams have aimed at some of the elite squads down the stretch to try to take one out kind of as their Super Bowl, I think the Eagles are looking at this game saying if we can make a statement to the NFL here, we can go out in style. Even if they break this trio up, I think the Eagles play with a lot of pride here in this game, and I think their fantasy players show up.
I think pride or not, I think the only real play you can go with at this point is Brian Westbrook. David Akers will probably have a good game if you're looking for kickers. We don't really talk about kickers a whole lot. I don't know whether Reggie Brown or Kevin Curtis can really be considered at this point, just due to the play of the quarterbacks.
San Diego has to be really excited about their matchup this weekend. They are 1 win and a Denver loss away from sewing up their division. They get the lowly Lions, who I have to believe are just completely blue about the way that game ended up last week, losing in a heartbreaking manner at the very end to Tony Romo and company. Jeff, I know you've got LT going. I got him going in one of my playoff leagues as well. I think LT goes for like $170-3 here. He's going to toast the Lions.
Yeah, well, they're going to need him to because Phillip Rivers has come down with an injury, and he's just not going to be at 100%. So that's going to restrict what they can do through the passing game. So I think that they're going to rely very heavily on LT. He's their game-breaking player. And then I do think that'll lighten things up for Antonio Gates and the other receivers on the San Diego side of the ball. I really like San Diego to really whoop the Lions here in this game.
I like the way that the San Diego defense is going to be able to play. Detroit outside on the road, not going to be good. Kevin Jones, anybody that has false hope off of the game last week against Dallas, which I wrongly predicted, by the way. I think Kevin Jones is going to be one of those games where he has close to negative rushing yards. So Sean McDonald has stepped up in Roy Williams' absence, so I think he's actually probably going to have the best numbers out of all the receivers, including Calvin Johnson.
Jesse, I know you're kind of a Lions guy, and I'm curious to know what you think about Calvin Johnson now without Roy Williams kind of being in the fold. He's injured.
Well, I've heard a little bit that Roy Williams is not only injured, but he's very disgruntled against this regime here. He's talking about wanting out. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a little bit of a pickle for Calvin Johnson to be put in, because he's going to be thrust into that #1 role. I do think he's got the physical skills to be able to take it over. My big problem is they don't protect Kitna up front.
Right.
Yeah.
And until they protect Kitna up front, he's going to be under heavy duress, heavy fire, and I just think their offense is going to continue to kind of crumble.
Yeah, I know that Sean Merriman is a little bit more like Boy now that he's not on the roids, but I do like him this weekend to perform well.
Yeah.
If he
their
plays,
defense.
he's got the knee injury that he got whacked by somebody from Tennessee last week.
He misses the dirty juice.
He got stepped on by Albert Hainsworth, right?
Washington traveling to play the Giants, guys. I believe this is the Sunday nighter, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the Giants are a team they've got the Jekyll and Hyde thing going. It's like 1 week they show up, they look really good. Eli plays with confidence. The next week he looks completely lost. He gets that kind of distant look in his eyes where you wonder if he might have some sort of mental illness. And you don't really know what to expect from them. Now, Washington, they're without their leader on offense too, because they've lost their quarterback for the season. I look at this matchup and I don't know how it's going to break down, Jeffrey.
Well, when Todd Collins is under center for the Washington Redskins, I just have a feeling that it's going to be a long day for him. Now, the Giants' defense isn't nearly as good as it once was earlier on in the season, but Todd Collins hasn't been under center since, I think, 2001.
Right.
Now, he came in
Something
and
like
did very well on Thursday night last week. And given the extra few days to prepare, I do think that Joe Gibbs, who's good at getting his guys ready, will get the most out of Todd Collins. But they're going to really need to rely on Clint Portis in the rushing game here in order to win this game. And I just think that more than anything than what the Redskins do, it depends on which Giants team shows up. You know, and coincidentally, I think that maybe Eli was weaned a little too early from the teat.
Nice. Nice.
I do like Chris Cooley in this game because anytime there's a quarterback that's in, Todd Collins, even though he's familiar with that offense, they do lean heavily on the tight ends. Chris Cooley could have a good game. Plaxico Burress should have a good game on the other side.
And Cooley's a stud.
Yeah.
Realistically, he's got that afro going and
The white man fro.
white chocolate, bro.
Yeah, it looked like me in high school when I used to have the long
That was
curly locks.
that was the afro mullet.
Yeah, the afro mullet.
The frullet.
Yeah, it was in fashion way back in 1992 in Wyoming. So there's one more matchup to break down as time kind of expires,
called it a
guys. We got
meme.
about a minute and a half left here in this segment. Indianapolis exploded last week on national television. Things are not all wrong there. We have a tendency to kind of write them off with some of the other squads that are really playing well. But Indy still has some firepower here. I'm wondering what your guys' take is here. Will Marvin Harrison play in this game? How much time is he going to need once he gets back into the game to be able to make an impact? Really, this just looks like a tune-up game for me, Indy at Oakland. What do you think?
Well, I think that Indianapolis, it was good to see them get back to their winning ways, but they realized that they need to funnel their offense through this guy right here, Joseph Adai. He had 3 touchdowns in that game. He really looked great, and he's great between the tackles, and he's good in the passing game as well. So I think that they're realizing that they need to funnel everything through him, and it opens things on the outside. And Reggie Wayne has really, really stepped up well into that #1 receiver role. While I don't think that Marvin Harrison will play, I do like Anthony Gonzalez a lot as he continues to develop as a solid #2 and eventually the heir apparent to Reggie Wayne.
Reggie Wayne, 2 catches for 42 yards. He was open anytime they wanted him. They pulled him really early. You play all your Colts at this point. Dallas Clark's healthy again. Anthony Gonzalez is the hottest pickup in leagues this week. Obviously, all your Colts. Fargas is probably the only guy you can even consider on the Raiders side of the ball this week.
And I told you several weeks ago, if not a month and a half ago, that Justin Fargas was going to be a factor down the stretch. And Fargas has really played well. He's had several 20-point games. He's had, I think, 4 or 5 100-yard rushing games. But now Fargas is a little bit dinged here.
Yeah.
So I'm stepping back off of the Fargas bandwagon quite so heavily. I think that injury just might be just enough to let them get Lamont Jordan back in there a little bit. Could kind of curtail Fargas's numbers. So if you have another option besides Fargas, you might want to look into that. Indy's going to roll here.
Yeah, just start all your Colts and hopefully you're not dependent.
Everybody
on the
rolls against Oakland on the ground. I love Joseph Adai. I think Joseph Adai could possibly be the best back of the week.
Check out the Fat Chat right after the show is over. Testosterone Fantasy Sports, we're here for you. We want to help you win because if you want to win,
You must tune in
to Testosterone Fantasy Sports. Check us out next week.